Well, hello, and good evening, everybody. Welcome to day two of I'm trying decided to use my on my display, so you'd be like, why she on? And why she on a third day in a row? She been on every day. Well, I'm gonna tell you why I'm on. Sunday is all about motivation and inspiration and getting you ready for your week. And then yesterday was day one. So this week, after much petitioning and much work, not just on my behalf, but on children's, especially Black children book authors around the country, we are officially celebrating Black Child Book Week. It began on Sunday, February 27th. It goes all the way through March 5th. So mark that down on your calendar. From here on out, we'll be celebrating Black Child Book Week. And so, just a little bit, even before I introduce um, a, um, a children's book author, Miss Tasha Dawson, who is my guest this evening. But why children's books? And why especially minority main characters of children's books? Now, I've written a book, The Book Bear, that has all ethnicities in it. So everyone is represented in some of my books, but African American children need to be able to see themselves in books as well, not just other ethnicities, but they need to be able to see themselves. Other minority groups need to be able to see themselves. So let me just give you a little statistic. If you weren't tuned in last night, but let me give you a statistic. Of all the children's books, the millions of children's books that are published currently, only 11%, I think we're moving toward 12%, are created that have African American children as the main character. Now, that's my book, Terrence the Terrific, Jackie's Gift. They have a main character that is an African American child. Less than 11% is, there's probably another 5 to 7% that are Native American, Asian, Pan African, um, biracial, and these are U.S. numbers. Now they're not global numbers; these are U.S. numbers. So that's less than 7%. So you get 7 and 11 is 18%. Okay, so that's 18%. That's pretty good, but 20 26% have the main character as an animal.
Mm,
Okay, and they're
mm,
cute. I love bears and chickens and cows and whatever, which is wonderful. And it's pretty easy to do. And we love that. But the remainder of the children's books have Caucasian or white children as the main character. They may have other children in the book, but that's not necessarily the main character. Okay.
mm,
So we're striving to create books that will have African American children, minority children, diverse children, physically challenged children as main characters, so they can all be inclusive and all be represented. So that's one of the primary reasons why we're celebrating Black Child Book Week, but also children's books are so important. Now, as I said yesterday, and I'll consider to say all week long, when I was a child, I'm 58, so I'm gonna take you back. Some of you way before you even born, but the basic books that we learned to read in first and second grade were Dick and Jane and Spot. And they
mm,
were,
mhm,
see Jane run, oh, how Dick can run, and see Spot run. The early readers. And as a African American child, or at that time I was a Black child, as a Black child then in the 60s, it didn't matter to me. I was learning to read and I really didn't care. My dad was an educator. My mother read to us every night before we went to bed. It didn't matter. But today it does matter. Children want to be able to see themselves represented in children's books. They want to be able to feel like that they're important enough, and that somebody took the time enough to create a character that looks like them. So I want to give you some examples of children's books with African American boys and girls that are main characters so that you'll be able to share them with your children. It does something to their self-esteem. It helps motivate them to learn when they're able to see themselves. And as an older adult, you might think that doesn't really matter, but baby, today it does really matter. So before we get started, I did want to, and I'll say that again at the end, if you're interested in creating your own children's book, go to creategreatkidsbooks.com. I'm having a free training on March 17th at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And I've done this boot camp before. So I'm doing a free training on March 17th. So go to creategreatkidsbooks.com. And if you're like, I can't wait till the training, I'm ready for the self-study course, go to juliaroystonstore.com and download and purchase Create Great Kids Books Self-Study Course. So it's already there for you. So I always want to write a children's book. I got it all set up and ready for you to go. All right. So there's a free training on March 17th. And then there's a self-study course to help you get started. So my first guest and my guest this evening. Hey, Erica. Hey, ladies. Hey, love. How are you? So my guest is Miss Tasha Dawson, and I want her to formally introduce herself, and tell us where she's from. Tell us about her books. No problem. Wonderful, wonderful. And then tell us a little bit about why she wrote. Well, first off, how people can purchase them, and then why you wrote them.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you so much for having me on. I am super excited to be with you tonight. I always get excited when I have an opportunity to talk about my books and also literacy within the African American community. So that's why I was very excited when I realized that this week was Black Children's Book Week, because we're able to celebrate not only Black children reading, but also literacy and authors that are publishing specifically for that minority community, but also not only for Black children, but for other children as well. So, again, my name is Tasha Dawson, and I am from Kentucky, Lexington, Kentucky. And so the great bluegrass state, home of the Derby, and many other things. And an interesting thing about Kentucky is there's a lot of new authors that are coming out, and so we are very excited about that. So, also, too, I was listening to the news last night and they were talking about eighth graders and the percentage of eighth graders that scored proficient. And they began to break it down as far as the minority groups. And so for Caucasians, it was around 40%, and then it went to Hispanics, and then it went to African American students. And that's just at the proficient level. So, I'm in agreement with you. When you can see yourself in books portrayed as main characters, or being a doctor or a lawyer or a nurse, or, all these pioneers that we know who African Americans are, when you can see that, then you can also see yourself in those situations. And so that's why I'm excited to be talking to you tonight about my books. I got started in children's books just because I've always had a passion for youth. So I am a former youth pastor, youth leader, and so I've worked with youth for about 20 years. So I've also worked with a nonprofit for teen pregnancy prevention. So youth has kind of been always in my life. And so I just coupled that, my passion for youth, with also my liking and my ability to be creative in writing. And so that's how I just began to get started with writing books. So my first book is called The Adventures of the Impact Kids, and it looks like this. And so it talks about a mission trip that I went on in Nigeria and what happened when we went on the mission trip. So inside the book, you can see that there's colorful pictures. And one thing that I like about books is books allow you the ability to travel. So even you can read a book and instantly become transported to another country. And so with my book, you're getting transported to Nigeria. So if you keep going and reading the book, you can see that it starts to expose you to some of the culture, the Nigerian culture, where you can see their clothing that they wear. It also talks about some of the food that we experienced while we were there, and also some of the customs and animals that we saw while we were there. So just by reading a book, you can instantly get transported to other countries. So that's one good thing about reading. Even though you've never been there before, a book allows you that experience of at least getting a bird's eye view of what was it like to be there. So this is my first book. Again, it's called The Adventures of the Impact Kids. And I use the word impact. I also have a small children's boutique. It's called the Impact Kids Boutique. I use the word impact just because you don't have to be a certain age to make an impact on the world. You know, you can be 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. The youngest author that I've met and saw her book, she was 9 years old. And she wrote a book during quarantine. You know, so she wrote about her experiences of being quarantined at 9 years old. So that's the great thing too about books. Not only can you read them, but you can also create them. You don't have to be a certain age. You don't have to be a certain race. You don't have to be, you know, a certain religion. Anybody can write. And so that's a good thing too about having a great publisher. She motivates you to write, even when you think that you can't do it. Julia has constantly encouraged me. You can do this, you know, and just, you know, well, where are you with your book? So that's one thing too. Having a good publisher also helps you in terms of writing your book. So if you're thinking about writing a book, you know, it's imperative that you get a good publisher. Once you have your idea, with my particular book, I cannot draw, I can't paint, anything like that. But I was able to get a skilled illustrator through the connection of my publisher. So he has been excellent, Cameron Wilson, and he has illustrated both of my books. So once you tell your illustrator what you want, you know, kind of what you had in your mind, then they can bring those pictures to life. So again, this is my first book, The Adventures of the Impact Kids. My
Okay,
second
now I
book,
want I want to
go
stop
ahead.
you real
Uh-huh.
quick. So one of the things that Tasha has done that I really want to advise, especially business owners, that and Tasha will eventually write a ministry book or something for adults, but she has tied strategically her book to her business because when I've gone to where her business, her children's boutique is, of course, it strategically connects the children's clothing, the children's gifts, and then her book is there as another option to accompany what she already has to offer. So I know some people are like, well, okay, what does that mean? Sometimes you have a business that needs a book, and then sometimes you have a book that you can possibly turn into a business. So one thing Tasha Dawson has done has strategically put the book and her business strategically together because her Impact Kids boutique and then the Impact Kids book go together. So it's a great marriage of sorts of all of her creative abilities with ministry, her book, the clothing, the gifts, the boutique arrangement. I don't have that gift of interior design. I mean, everything's cute, pink, girly, boys. Woo! It's just cute all the way around. She has that gift and that ability. So I really want you to think about people who have ideas. I always tell them to have a children's version if you're doing something for adults, that hopefully you can somehow transpose that to a children's version, especially if it's a social issue or if it's motivation, affirmations, positive self-esteem, because you need to have a children's version as well, because we can, it's just, what's the saying, it's easier to build up child, but to or tear down, and it's just easier than
Mhm.
trying to build up a broken man. It's
Mhm.
easier to work on children while they're small. So I
Mhm.
want to encourage you to do that because the idea is just phenomenal. I had no idea she had a boutique and all of that when we were doing the book together, and then when I saw it all in one place at one time, it was incredible. I was like, oh, I see that. I mean, like, wow, it's perfectly going together. Okay, so sorry, I didn't want
No,
to
it's okay.
interrupt you, but I wanted to really point out for people who may listen now or hear it later on the replay that really can making that connection with their book and their business is really key and important. All right, book two. Go ahead.
Okay. And so actually, with the book came from when I would speak and just talking, kids would always come up to me and say, I want to do that. I want to go on a missions trip. I want to know more about it. And the more they kept saying that to me, the more I realized, there aren't many books where it's specifically talking about children visiting other countries, going on missions trips, things like that. So then that's how that first book was kind of birthed. And then when I was once I got my book, then people would say, "Oh, do you have a water bottle? Do you got T-shirts to go with it? Do you have this? Do you have that?" And that's how it just kind of naturally evolved into, "Oh, well, yeah, I have the book, I have the T-shirt, I have the water bottle." So it just kind of evolved into a business. So you may not be thinking about your book as a business, but it is a business. I wasn't thinking about it like that. I was just thinking about, this is my book. But no, your book can also be your business too. So I've been blessed, just with the connections that I've made. Never in my life did I think that I was going to have a store or be an author or write a book. But, God has plans for us, and so those plans, if we just continue to walk in his footsteps, he'll make them clear to us. And so that was my first book. So I was excited when I first got that first book out. Writing your first book kind of gets your feet wet and builds up your confidence, that, yeah, I can do this, especially when you start hearing feedback from the community, feedback from kids, your audience that you're writing for. And so my book does have African American main characters, but what I noticed is everybody buys my book. It's not just African Americans, it's Caucasians, it's Hispanic, it's Africans, it's, everybody buys my book, to where people have even said, "Hey, have you thought about translating it into a different language?" And so there is a new addition to the first book that I wrote. So, so once you write your first book, it can spin off to a lot of different things. And expect for it to do that, have that expectation. So that was my first book. So that was just me kind of getting my feet wet. And then I had an idea for a second book. And the second book is called God's Masterpiece. And so with this book really just came out of a conversation that I was having with one of my friends. And she was talking about, she is a professional seamstress. And she said, I just love to sew and I love fabrics. And then she just said, "I wonder if God has a sewing machine in heaven." And I said, "What, girl? That could be a book." And I just started laughing. But the more and more I thought about it, was the more and more that the book just started coming to me. And so in the book, I give her credit for that conversation. So even those thoughts that you have, "Hey, I should write about that," or thoughts that won't leave your mind, they just stay there, get a pen and paper, start writing it down. Start building, developing those thoughts, because they're books, they're poems, they're art pieces, they're illustrations. So they're in your mind for a reason. So God's Masterpiece talks about a little girl named Nehemiah. And Nehemiah, instead of doing her usual Saturday chores, her mom tells her that she is going to teach her how to sew. But in her family, her mom, her grandmother, and her great grandmother were all seamstresses. So they all knew how to sew. So it's multi generational, passing down the talent that they had to the youngest daughter. And as she's teaching her how to sew, Nehemiah begins to look out the window. And eventually she asked her mom the question, "How does God do all of this? How does he have so much time? How can he create the trees and the birds and the sun?" And then finally she says, "He must have a sewing machine that's a lot bigger and faster than mine." And so her mom begins to tell her, "Well, he doesn't have a sewing machine, but he is the master tailor." And she begins to tell her, out of everything that he made, so while he made the heavens and the sky, while he made the sun, while he even made the rose gardens, at the end, she finally tells her, "But you are his greatest masterpiece." So she tells her, "You're beautiful, valuable, funny, and smart. You are one of a kind and a true work of art." So this is really a self-esteem book, specifically for girls, just to let you know that you are a masterpiece. You know, there's nobody else that's like you. You're unique, you're funny, you're valuable, you're smart, you're a work of art. And so that's where my second book came from. So I'm excited, and everyone asked me, which one's your favorite? And it seems like the first one was my favorite. Now this is my favorite, and now it's like I gotta write another one because I know that's gonna be my favorite. So yeah.
Oh Lord, yeah. I mean, well, I know. I like how you gonna pick one child? I mean, like how you gonna pick? But both of them really, honestly, are my. I like both of them. I really,
Yeah.
really, really do. So, where can people buy them?
Okay. So you can buy them off of my website. Is theimpactkids.com. Theimpactkids.com. And so both of the books are available on the website. Also, there are items from my store on the website as well. And you can also purchase them off of Amazon.com. But theimpactkids.com is where you can get more variety of
I was
everything.
gonna say that's the whole store right there. And then
Yeah.
if you're in the Lexington area, where do they come if they're wanting to come to your brick and
Okay.
mortar?
Yes. So the address to the boutique is 101 West Loudon Avenue. So again, it's 101 West Loudon Avenue. So it's inside the Julietta Market. So it's at the corner of Limestone and Loudon.
It right there in the heart of Lexington. It's a really a unique space. It is a wonderful use of space. It is a space where multiple businesses are in one place, and I know that lot of uh, uh, a lot of cities are doing that. They're taking open, wide open, empty spaces and converting them for
Mm-hmm.
businesses to be able to have a space. There's
Mm-hmm.
nothing like sharing a space as opposed to, you got to do all the overhead and you got to do all the rent and you got to do all. But if you, as they say, slice that pizza up into different pies, you're able to do even more. So it's a beautiful thing. It's
Right.
an incredible thing. It's a wonderful thing to see artwork and unique customized gifts and food and hairstyles and just everything going on at the same exact time. Unique crafts, specifically to Kentucky, that are there too as well. There's all kinds of restaurants and just all kinds of things. So just if you're in the Lexington, Kentucky area, please go by there and check it out and visit and patronize the businesses that are in there. But then also, most importantly, go to theimpactkids.com and browse the online store, and then make sure that so that Tasha will know exactly who bought it, and you can get signed copies. If you buy it off
Right.
Amazon, she's not going to know you bought it, and she's going to thank you for the royalty, but she's not going to know exactly who bought it, and you're not going to get a signed copy, and then you're not going to know exactly when book 3 comes out. Yeah,
Right. Right.
as I say, I'm just speaking that into existence. So go visit the impactkids.com. And then if you're looking for a speaker, if you're looking for someone to empower your youth ministry group, your young kids in ministry, and especially in the virtual space, she can be online in the Zoom and StreamYard space and impact your youth ministries around the world, literally. So thank you
Yeah.
so much, Patty, for being my guest. And
Okay.
then coming up next is Ms. Brianna Hogue. How are you?
Hi. How are you? I'm
Hey,
doing good.
I'm doing good. I'm doing good. I'm doing good. Well, welcome, welcome, welcome. For
Thank
those
you
of
for
you
having
joining
me. Thank
us,
you for having me always.
no problem. We're celebrating Black Child Book Week. And even though I didn't publish Brianna's books, I always take Brianna about anywhere I want to go. She's available. I'm like, come on, Brianna, we going here, we going there, we going everywhere.
I
So
love you for that. I love you for that.
so Brianna, introduce your books. Tell us a little bit about why you wrote them. Introduce yourself, and then tell them where people can purchase your books.
Yes, I'm good. Evening, everyone. Thank you again, Julia, for inviting me to this celebration. It's so funny because my friend tagged me in a post like an hour ago about Black Children's Book Week, and I saw that it was created just recently by a
Yes.
Spelman alumnus. So I really
Yes.
didn't know where the celebration came from, but I'm so happy that she created that.
Well, the calendar, you know how we do the calendar week and they got all kinds of celebrate peanut butter and jelly week and celebrate, so they have actually petitioned the calendar, kind of the national calendar.com that celebrates monthly events, like Mother's Day and then the Heart Association and all that. So they petitioned specifically to add Black Child Book Week for this year. This is the first time doing it. So we're really all trying to get on board and really, really push it and big. And if you go to the Black Child Book Week website, and you click on events, you will see loads of events. And this one included, I stated we would be on every single night. And as a matter of fact, somebody this past weekend said, I think I saw you. I said, yeah, you saw it, because I uploaded into the events folder so it would be included so they would know it. And, and then people would, the powers that be that have that as a part of the calendar will understand its nationwide importance, not just the one person's importance, but it's nationwide importance. Yes. So go ahead. Go ahead.
Yes, definitely. So it's so amazing. This is the inaugural Black Children's Book Week, and it starts February 27th, ends on March 5th. And so I thought that was cool. And the website to learn more about more virtual readings is blackbabybooks.com. So I want to thank Julia for creating this platform for us to celebrate Black children's books and literature, because that's why I became a children's book author. I was a former fifth grade teacher, and it was, difficult for me to find books that represented the children that were in my classroom. And I got the idea after my first year of teaching, after the experiences in public school, and through a national literacy program I work for, Freedom Schools, to publish a children's book. And so my first book, Act Your Age, Sean Trinell, is based on, it's a fictional character, but based on some of the children, young gentlemen in my classroom. And it's really a reflection to myself, because I felt like I was being very strict with my students, and a phrase that I would say was "at your age." And so I'm like, after that year was over, I'm like, well, they were acting their age, maybe I wasn't, making the lesson more engaging. Maybe I wasn't thinking about how to make it more developmentally appropriate and incorporate, their multiple intelligences and, you know, just reaching them. And so that is really why I really became a children's book author, is because I was reflecting on my own teaching practices and thinking about how sometimes our young men, Black boys in particular, are, judged as being quote unquote bad, misbehaved, and they're actually acting their age. And we need to let them be kids and, have realistic expectations of them. So that's kind of like how my journey started. Just, I call myself a teacher, author, educator, author. And so it's from that experience. And then I decided everyone loved the first book and they were just like, when's the next one coming out? And Julia will tell you, I was just like, I don't really want to publish any until I finish my PhD. But when you become an author, especially when, people love the book, you'll see they're like pushing you to publish more. And so my second book, I decided to do a sequel, and it was Sean Trinell, The Greatest of All Time. And this one, again, they're both social skills, and I plan to publish more. He is boastful, he's confident, but it's a little bit of, arrogance, and he's putting other people down in the process. And so he learns a lesson about humility from his mother, and about teamwork, and how everyone has their own unique gifts. And both books have activity guides to go accompany the book, so that, because as a teacher, I know it's good to work on comprehension and, make sure the students are, thinking beyond the text. And so I have some things that students can do to follow up with the book. And then recently I published my third children's book, Never Catch Me. And this book I can't take full credit for. This is actually based on an original song that my mom used to sing to me, my sister and I, when we were younger. And I forgot about it until she began babysitting a little girl, and I heard her singing. I'm like, I remember that song when you sang it to us. And so I decided to kind of remix the song a little bit and turn it into a nursery rhyme book. And so this one is more for the early readers. This will be, good for those expecting mothers, families. And it has more sight words. The illustrations are really vibrant. And I included some facts about bumblebees. So it's Never Catch Me, said the bee. And then there is a coloring page at the end. My journey is just more about creating work that children relate to in everyday life. And also, with nursery rhyme books, I don't see a lot of African American characters in just typical books that you would see on the shelf. So I hope I answered that everything. But yeah, thank you for having me.
Okay, so how do people buy it? How do people get it? Now that third one is really cute. I really like that one.
I
I like
know,
all
Julia
of
loves
them.
it.
And believe you me, we've done events together where little brown boys walk up and just start, because she has that. The first book is a full like 6 foot poster, and
Mm-hmm.
she has like, so little brown boys walk up and just they just standing in the middle of. If you could just imagine a little boy just standing in the middle of an aisleway going, ah, and I
Mm-hmm.
mean, no words. He's just screaming and pointing. And his mother's like, okay, how much is that book? I gotta have that book.
Yeah,
Mhm.
Because
that's how they
first
do.
off,
Mhm.
it
Exactly.
resembled him. He didn't even know what the book was about. He didn't really even care what was on the inside of it.
Mm-mm.
He was brown like that baby was brown.
Mm-hmm.
He finally saw a little boy that was brown like him.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, other people are like, is that a big deal, baby? Today, it's a
It
huge deal.
really is.
It, I mean, it is.
Representation is so important. Like, it's so
It's
important for
everything. It's everything.
children to see themselves in the books, and
Yeah.
not even just our Black children, but children from other races. They
Right.
need to
And
be able to
we've
see
had
other
I've
kids.
had white children who wanted to read the book because if you can imagine this, they've never read a book with a black child on it either.
No.
So
Right.
Mm-mm.
therefore they're like, well, let's find out what they talking about it in.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
I've seen that because I've been on a Black Child Book Fair tour, and on that tour, there are all races of people who walk through to want to see and be introduced because they are first off there are white teachers and other ethnicity teachers, and there are definitely parents with biracial children that are like, I've got to
Mhm.
find something that represents both sides of my child's
Mhm.
family. I just,
Exactly.
and or they may have a white mother, they may have a white father. I've seen a little bit everything, but they have a white father, they may have a white mother, and they're like, we've got to represent both sides of our community. So that's one of the vast things that,
Mhm.
um, the parent is the first teacher. We do know that. And so therefore I've had some very, very powerful parents that are like, I want my child to know all sides of their life and that
Mm-hmm.
they are important in both of the families and how they're represented. So yeah, it really, really is important. And for those that are interested in writing children's books, that is really a key, especially if you want schools to have it or Christian ed situations, community. It doesn't matter. You want to help the teacher as much as possible. So you want to be able to offer helpful hints, whether it's a coloring sheet, whether it's a lesson or doing some research. I have a new book that's coming out that I'll probably be uploading within the next day or so, and the child is biracial and she's African American and Nicaraguan is her dad. So
Mhm.
it's that's a book of studying about another culture, another country, learning a different language, knowing about their foods. It's
Mm-hmm.
the or the title of the book is The Best of Both Worlds, but it's really incorporating that. So a classrooms could say, well, what do they eat in Nicaragua? Where is Nicaragua? Where is it on the map, on the globe? Where is that? Is it south? Is it north? Is it east? Is it west? Is it hot there? Is it cold? What is it? So that's a whole, even the bee story with Brianna, and even the first impact kids. That's for research. That's for science. That's for all kinds of social studies, international studies. You got to really expand and really fully think outside the box when you're doing things like that, especially that can cross into the educational system. So I'm super excited. I'm sorry, Brianna, did you ever tell us where we can buy your book?
You can contact me on actually briannahogue.com. You can contact me there via my website, or on Instagram, author Brianna, to buy books directly from me, or on Amazon. They're available on Amazon as well. I think Barnes and Noble, some of them. So yes, those are the
So
places.
Brianna Hogue, we're going to go there. BriannaHogue.com, theimpactkids.com. And then if you're interested in participating, I saw a gentleman's comment about how do you be a part as an author. Go to blackbabybooks.com. I think they're not, I know this is the main week, but I know that there will be having all types of activities probably throughout the year. And there's plenty of people virtual, and there's plenty of connections that you can make, because you just click on events and you will see literally more than 100 events that are happening around the country. And this only being one of them. Some people just did one day to spotlight multiple authors. Me, I'm doing a solid week and spotlighting authors and books. And I know people who say, well, I don't know what to buy. Well, that's the reason why we're here. So if you know a teacher, if you know a school system, this past weekend, I was in Florida at a Black Homeschoolers Association of Central Florida, had a huge community expo. And so I didn't even realize there were that many people, Black homeschoolers. And I know there are many, 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 many more around the country. So this is a way for you to have your own private book collections and libraries, to expand your libraries. This was a huge deal even in 2020 when we were home and getting books from Amazon and getting them into the house, because we done run out of books and we weren't going into the classroom. But even after we've returned to the classroom, we still need fresh books to read and new authors to be introduced to. So that's a part of what this is about, of reintroducing you to books and authors. They may have been out there a long time. You just didn't know they existed. So that's part of my job, is to create a platform, especially this week for Black Child Book Week. So thank you both for being on with me this evening. I totally appreciate it. And thank you so much for your time. Your books are phenomenal. And I really appreciate you taking the time to be here. Please support them. Please reach out to them, follow them. They're available to speak. I know Brianna does. I know Tasha does. Reach out to them in the StreamYard and Zoom space. It is beautiful for you to be able to pop on and be able to literally speak to the world. Just as a reminder, creategreatkidsbooks.com if you're interested in writing one. I have a free training that's coming up on March 17th at 7:00 Eastern Standard Time. And I do have a self-study course that's already out there, up and available. Go to JuliaRoystonStore.com and purchase it and get started today. If you're interested, reach out to me, solo.to/Julia A. Royston. That's all my contact information. So if you have a question, reach out and I'll be happy to answer your question as much as possible. I appreciate this time. It's been phenomenal.
Thank you, Julia.
No problem. You're welcome. Be blessed in all that you all do. Keep writing, keep reading. Be blessed. Good night.
Bye.
Bye.